So my name is Jim Kearns. I'm joining you today from Slowly Shirley. It's a bar below the Happiest Hour in the West Village in Manhattan. We opened just about a year ago. I have been bartending in New York for about 14 years now. Been in the service industry for about 22 years. These are the first bars that I've ever been a partner in. I'm going to be demoing some drinks from our first menu down here. We're getting ready to transition into spring, summer. On our opening menu, we had an entire section dedicated to room temp cocktails. So those are cocktails made entirely without the use of chill or ice. It's talking a little bit about kind of how those came to be on our menu, how I became aware of them, and how they kind of developed into, I don't know, could be a trend, could be an ongoing thing. It's sort of hard to say at this point. It was just sort of a funny thing that we did on the opening menu that a lot of people kind of paid attention to. Basically, when we were doing our first R&D for the opening menu down here, John Henderson, who was my original head bartender, put forward a room temperature drink, one of the ones that we'll be demoing in a little while here. And I thought it was kind of a funny idea, and I thought it was kind of cheeky, and I didn't really know what else to make of it. But then everybody kept sort of talking about that drink that he did. I got kind of interested in the idea. I looked it up, and it turned out that there is actually a history of room temp cocktails going back quite some time, which makes sense when you think about the fact that ice machines didn't used to be something that everybody had. Once you ran out of ice, you may not necessarily be done with your day serving drinks. You may still want to serve things whether or not you have ice. So reading more about it, I kind of discovered that it was a style of drink with a good amount of precedence, and so I started to think about it even more. And then I had a drink that I was working on, another one of the drinks that's on the menu that I'll be talking about in a little while. I noticed that when it was cold, it started to tighten up, and even though I was using a lot of really nice ingredients in it, it wasn't really quite coming together the way that I wanted. It was just way too light. A lot of the flavors weren't coming through the way that I wanted them to. I tried it at room temp, and it actually turned out to work really well that way. From there, that's kind of where the little seasonal section on room temp cocktails on the current menu was born. We ended up adding a couple to it, and all in all, it was a small sort of section that is going to seasonally rotate and ultimately, kind of be just sort of a fun section on the menu that changes every time the menu does. But on the opening menu, it ended up being an entire section of room temp cocktails. We just decided we would see how that went. First one I'll do, I suppose, is the first cocktail that John gave to me, which ended up being called Captain Ron. And he said this was a drink that he pulled out for a competition that he did and just kind of had to come up with something on the fly. Made this drink up. So what I did was I just added water to it. Water is part of all of our room temp cocktails. I will say that historically, from whatever research I've been able to find, and there isn't a lot, water was not a standard addition to these things. Generally speaking, the recipes that I've seen, and they go back to Harry Johnson's bartender's manual from the 1880s. They generally don't use water. What we wanted to do, though, was keep the number of variables that we were eliminating if we weren't going to be adding chill to these things down to a minimum. So what we did was we kept the dilution in the drink to make it a little bit more palatable and a little bit less fiery for people. Added water, but just at room temperature. So all of these are going to have a little bit of water in them. So I just added 3/4 of an ounce of water. Now I'm going to add some Demerara syrup, 1 teaspoon. Quarter ounce of Aperol, 1/4 ounce of Averna, and 1.5 ounces of Ron Zacapa. Now, the hardest thing about making these drinks, at least for me, since the next thing that I just do by habit is to reach for ice, is not to end up icing them and ultimately throwing them down the sink, because it's just such an instinctual thing that we do as bartenders. So this guy is going to be served in a wine glass. And garnished with a lemon twist. So what you end up with is a very dark-spirited, aromatic cocktail that pulls out some of the nuances in Ronzacapa. So you have dark chocolate and orange that are pulled out by the Aperol and the Averna, a little bit of sweetness added by the Demerara, and you get kind of like a really nice dark chocolate flavor profile out of this drink. This kind of brings up the other reason that we found was a really good starting point for creating these drinks, which is to pull out nuances in an individual spirit. That's kind of the idea behind this drink. And then the other one would be, like I described before with the drink that I made, being a case where you're working with a lighter spirit or set of ingredients, and they're getting too shut down by the chill on the cocktail. And I'm seeing a question here. Melissa, no, 3/4 of an ounce was just kind of, it's like how much citrus you use in a drink or how much vermouth you use in something. 3/4 of an ounce is just kind of what worked in this one. There's one on the menu that had 1 ounce in it. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do that today, but 3/4 is a good place to start. You don't, as I said, classically, a lot of these don't have any water in them at all. So you don't necessarily need water to make a room temp cocktail. That being said, though, like I said, we wanted to keep the number of variables that were eliminated down to a minimum. So we left water in and left ice out. In the research we were doing, we discovered that this whole style of drinks is called scaffa. And scaffa, as it turns out, in Italian means cabinet. So it would make sense if room temp cocktails were just simply derived from a type of drink that involves going to your liquor cabinet, taking out a bunch of stuff you like, and putting it in the glass. Conveniently, though, as with most historical things, and as they apply to drinks anyway, there's a little bit of ambiguity and some sufficient room for confusion. In that scaffa is also an Italian last name. It could have been the name of the guy who came up with the first room temp drink. So very hard to say exactly where these things came from. Like I said, that's sort of the thing with a lot of cocktails and cocktail styles. The earliest one that I was able to find published, once again, was the Harry Johnson brandy scaffa. And beyond that, I can't really seem to find a lot. So starting here on the drink that kind of got me thinking about doing a few of these on the menu. This is one called The Sun Also Rises. So makes use of a lot of kind of really delicious but very delicate ingredients. And there was just no way to make this a chilled drink and have it actually kind of make any sense. So I ended up trying it at room temperature. And what we do is I just added 3/4 of an ounce of water once again. So there you go, the 3/4 measure. Half an ounce of Amontillado. This is a little bit of a batch. So in this, couple of kind of esoteric ingredients I'm going to talk about. We have this, which is Banes Pacharan. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, and I'm probably not. But this is sort of a Spanish-style sloe gin. It's very dry and not at all syrupy as some people might think of sloe gin as being. Then this, which is Cazotte Quince. It's a liqueur made by this guy, Laurent Cazotte. He's based out of France. He has an entirely estate-based production. So he grows these quinces. They only use the edible parts of the fruit to make all of their liqueurs and eau de vies, and they're absolutely phenomenal. So this is his quince liqueur. These are both at 1/4 ounce in this particular cocktail, and for convenience and speed and space's sake, we have them combined in one convenient little cheater right here. 1/2 ounce of that, quarter, and then 2 ounces of another kind of oddball ingredient. So this is Domaine d'Esperance. They make some really nice Armagnacs. This is their Blanche Armagnac, so a completely unaged Armagnac from a really awesome Armagnac producer. And that's going to be 2 ounces, and then once again, just to make things easy, got that in the cheater over here as well. Once again, serving that in a wine glass. And this just gets a little grapefruit zest over the top and on the glass, because the drink is so delicate and light. Once again, room temp, filling its second function, or at least the second one that I could kind of discern, which is to allow lighter elements, or a drink made entirely of lighter elements, to kind of shine. And this one is called The Sun Also Rises. Going to move on to the third one. We had 4 on the menu. I'll talk about the last one. However, unfortunately, due to some production issues, we are not able to make the 4th one because one of the main ingredients in it is out of stock and will be until the fall. Actually, 2 of the main ingredients are. The next one is going to be called the Pretty Lush. This is, again, in the first sort of category where we're taking something that kind of has a lot of interesting notes on it, finding those notes and pulling them out and trying to accentuate them and showcase them. So the central spirit in this drink is Clement Con Bleu, which is an unaged agricole rum. And it's got a lot of very green notes on it. So like green banana, grass, a lot of those kind of typical agricole notes, but a very strong whack of banana as well. I add a teaspoon of cane to my mixing glass here. That's just cane syrup. 3/4 of an ounce of water once again. So yeah, Melissa, I guess that is kind of the magic measurement. Gray spirits that generally never ever do well at room temp. I don't know. I mean, we played around with gin for these things, and it didn't do badly. You know, gin would definitely be one that I would play with cautiously, but I would have a hard time thinking of anything else, because a lot of the stuff that we ended up using anyway are spirits that could very easily be consumed at room temp, and that in some cases are arguably even better served at room temp, like Zacapa, and then the one I'll talk about in a minute has Laird 7.5-year Applejack in it. In most cases, I think sipping spirits probably work best for this, but as I said, you know, I mean, if we were able to figure out a way to incorporate gin into one, it didn't end up making it on the menu, but it's not to say it won't ever happen. I think really probably the sky's the limit. You could play around with these for a lot of different spirits. 1 dash of celery bitters next here. So we got our 3/4 ounce of water, teaspoon of cane, and 1 dash of celery bitters. On to the fun stuff. Got this Brovo Douglas fir liqueur here. Douglas fir, which if anyone knows the Clear Creek Douglas fir eau de vie, same plant obviously, but this is a liqueur, so sweetened, definitely a little bit more on the fruity, light and sweet side, whereas the Clear Creek is dry and tends to be very botanical. Bottle of that down here, and we're going to add a 1/4 ounce of that. Now Giffard banana, which if anyone knows Giffard, it's a, I don't have a bottle back here that I can, oh, maybe I do, there we go. This guy is kind of a nice, if anyone's unfamiliar with it, a very nice, dry, darker banana liqueur. Good banana flavor, but without that super fruity, artificial kind of note of like 99 Bananas or some of the other banana liqueur products that are out there on the market. Last but definitely not least here, the Clement Con Bleu, which is in packaged form, a lot like that. And then again, I have my little idiot bottle here. So 1.5 ounces of that. You'll notice that I've given all of these a little bit of a stir, and the notion there is to incorporate things, especially in these drinks that have cane or demerara or really heavy syrups like that in them, simply because even though it's room temp, you still need everything to be in solution. So for this little guy, I'm gonna serve it in a whiskey glass. We don't need any garnish on this because it is very aromatic and really kind of gets the point across well without any help. That's really nice. So that's actually coming to seasonality here a tiny bit, because we're going to talk about a drink, as I said, in a moment, that we can't make because some of the ingredients are just not available to us anymore and won't be until the fall. That last drink I made, the Pretty Lush, would be one that I would characterize as being fairly season proof. A lot of these, because they are room temperature, tend to be drinks that work a little bit better in cool weather, which since we do enjoy, dubiously enjoy cold weather here in New York up until May, we can get away with having these on the menu right now. But in the summertime, I don't know if I'd want to have an entire section of these guys on a menu. The last one we did, maybe the sun also rises, work in warmer weather. I don't know how much the darker spirit ones would really move in the summertime. Oh, Melissa, I'm just using my little sliding measuring spoon. These are, you can get them on Amazon now. It's like an all-in-one measuring spoon. So this particular model starts off with a ½ teaspoon and slides all the way out to a tablespoon. So really convenient in the interest of not keeping an entire set of measuring spoons on a bar and ending up losing half of them. And it also works to measure out ingredients and give your syrup measurements or whatever you were measuring with them a little bit of a stir before you take them out of your mixing glass. The last drink that we had on this list was one called the Harvest Moon. It actually didn't so much play on any one ingredient, but it played on apples, essentially, and spiced apple as a flavor profile. So it was cinnamon syrup, Angostura bitters, aromatic bitters, Laird 7.5-year Applejack, Manzanilla sherry, and Pommeau. And unfortunately right now, both Laird 7.5 and the Pommeau that we were using are both out of stock. The producer of the Pommeau wasn't happy with the batch that came out this year, so that's all the Pommeau we're seeing until fall. And Laird 7.5 pretty notoriously goes away for a little while every year, and it's on its yearly vacation right now. So that particular drink, because it is so nice for the fall, may come back in 6 months when we change the menu again. But it's one that I can't make, unfortunately, right now. So as I mentioned regarding this section, the room temp cocktail section, because we did open last year in May. And we had this section on the menu just to kind of see what would happen with it, because we thought it was a fun idea and one that we really hadn't seen before. We put it on the menu, and kind of coming in, and it was a slow summer because we had just opened, but those drinks moved very, very slowly in the summertime. So I would probably say that these are drinks you want to, if you're going to put on a menu, hold off until autumn. They work really well at that time of year. But what we're going to be replacing these with is an entire section on spice. So every kind of spice you can think of, from horseradish to habanero. It's a really exciting little move, and kind of a way for us to really explore that particular flavor profile. So that's where this section on the menu is going. That should be a lot of fun in the summertime. I can also preview something from the new menu. Let's see. So this drink is kind of an homage to the link between Latin American and Asian flavors, in the sense that a lot of people and their customs came with them over the Bering Strait land bridge at some point in a long time ago in history. And it's often argued that mezcal and the distillation practices of a lot of indigenous peoples in Latin America came in some way from Asia. So there tend to be a lot of links, both in terms of art and culture and food and flavors between Latin America and Asia. So this drink kind of plays with that a little bit. So we have flavors from both cultures kind of merging together. I just add a little bit of agave nectar here. We're going to do a 1/4 ounce of yuzu, which is an Asian fruit. And a little bit of ginger syrup. Pineapple juice. All right, kind of oddball Asian ingredient here. This is called Kyuchi no Shizuku. This is made by Hitachino Distillery. This is their Hitachino White Owl Ale, distilled to high proof and then proofed down to 42% using more Hitachino White Owl. So it's a really interesting, fun spirit to play with. Pisco. Little 1/2 ounce of Pisco here. One ounce of mezcal. An 1.5 ounces of sparkling Nigori sake, which was just very sparkling when I opened it. And 1 ounce of soda water. We do have ice on this bar, so this is actually not a room temp drink. Sort of like a Pisco punch or something like that. Somewhere between a Pisco punch and a sake spritzer with a little bit of a twist. And once again, served in a wine glass. And with a couple of pineapple leaves as a garnish there. So it's a little preview of the summer menu down here at Slowly Shirley. Yeah, so the spice section on the menu is definitely one theme that's being incorporated. We have 3 sort of classics sections on the menu. For the first menu, we did old fashions, martinis, and Manhattans. We are keeping the martinis section because it just sort of fits the very 30s, 40s decor of the room. So those are staying on, and then we are adding in a section of daisies another section of sours and fizzes. So spice section, daisies, sours, and fizzes are kind of the more thematic sections of the menu that are changing. Otherwise, we're working on a lot of shaken, kind of very summery cocktails, figuring out some drinks that kind of play into the season a little. A good question, Jody. Selling room temp cocktails to drinkers who have never had them. I think the easiest and best sells for the room temp cocktails are spirit drinkers, honestly. People who like to drink booze and who can kind of appreciate it by itself and who are kind of used to tasting spirits are the people that are most likely to identify with these cocktails and appreciate them. They are definitely not novice cocktail drinker compatible as much as some of the other drinks on the menu. I probably wouldn't encourage someone who just wants kind of a light, easy cocktail to drink them. They're definitely for people who like and appreciate cocktails and spirits already. Any well-known or classic cocktails that are typically shaken or stirred over ice that translate just as well to being served at room temp? Actually, we did the launch event for Pikesville 110 proof rye down here in Shirley last year. For that particular event, we did a room temp Manhattan, and it worked out extremely well. In fact, when we were trying to kind of figure out whether or not these drinks were worthy of an entire section on the menu, and if this was something that could be a style of drink worth paying more attention than, a drink on the menu kind of mixed in with all the other ones, we tried a room temp Manhattan, and it worked extremely well. Just because with the vermouth in Manhattan, essentially being a wine and whiskey being something that's often enjoyed very well at room temperature, we found that room temp suited a Manhattan extremely well. I don't know if I would want a room temp daiquiri. Probably wouldn't care for a room temp martini quite that much, but hard to say. Someone might be able to come up with something that would sway me on those. Oh, making room temp drinks appealing in the summertime. I think I kind of answered that, Gray, but yeah, we tried it last year, and I would say, there was a bit of novelty surrounding them, and there are certainly one or two that we have that aren't entirely unappealing in the summer, but we're definitely moving away from them for the summertime on our second menu. They're great for colder months, but I'm not entirely sure how much they really appeal to people after being out in 100-degree, 100% humidity in New York or New Orleans weather for that matter. Like I said, the spice section is kind of replacing them. Misfires when making room temp drinks. Gray, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know that we too specifically kind of came to these saying, okay, well, this has to be a room temp cocktail. I think in a lot of cases, it was kind of like, oh, that might actually be really good at room temp. That might be something that makes sense for that section on the menu. The only one that I think I made with the specific intention of it being, a room temp cocktail out of the gate was the one called the Harvest Moon that's not on the menu, or that's not available currently, just because of availability of the Pomo and the Laird's. Oh, do room temp cocktails make a substantial dent in how much ice we use in a shift? They don't particularly, Jody. Like I said, they're a style of drink that's for a more, shall we say, accomplished drinker. So generally speaking, we sell a few of these guys a night, but not a tremendous number of them. It was an interesting idea to do a whole section of them and focus on them intensively on a menu, but they haven't caught on tremendously yet. A few bars have featured them on menus that I've seen in the last year. Practicality of these drinks in the fall and winter is kind of awesome because it's usually an extremely difficult logistical consideration to make, to try to figure out how to do hot drinks on a bar, how to allocate the space for it and not have it end up just being a hot mess in one way or another. Room temp cocktails seem to be a nice middle ground where you don't have to necessarily have the hot plate out on the back bar, or the little, burner plugged in, that's constantly, covered in burned sticky stuff and making a mess on your back bar. You can probably tell I really love hot drinks from this, but they kind of give a nice middle ground where they're not something that's freezing cold when someone comes in out of the cold and wants something to warm them up a little bit. And they are actually sort of batchable, so if you wanted to do them for a party or something like that, you could very easily have a flask or a pitcher of them out. In fact, we do offer them by the flask, and they don't change, they don't over dilute while they're sitting because there's no ice involved. Obviously, they don't get too warm. So they are pretty good for just kind of serving to large groups of people, as long as your friends are again, pretty accomplished, graduate level drinkers. Oh, Christopher, room temp mocktails. No, we have not done any mocktails at room temp. I suppose you could. We haven't really, I think most mocktails are, generally speaking, going to involve citrus in one way or another. We haven't really played around with citrus in room temp cocktails. I think generally speaking, if someone wants a drink with citrus in it, they're going to want a cold drink. So we haven't tried it, but it's not to say it couldn't be done. It's a fun category because I did find when we were developing this menu that as soon as we kind of would say, all right, well, that can't be done, we would figure out a way to do it. So I think that it's fun in that it defies a lot of preconceived notions as to what makes a good drink or what would be good cold and what wouldn't be good warm. So it is fun to play around and kind of see what you can do with this style of drink. And Candace, yes, I will be at Tails. I'm doing a Pisco tasting room with Francine Cohen. And I am also going to be doing a seminar, sitting in on a seminar anyway, on bartenders who have transitioned to being bar owners. So I'll be doing those two things as it stands right now, and otherwise I'll be out and about. So there's a chance someone might have the poor fortune of running into me. Let's see here. How often? Oh, Hendo, thanks for jumping in. I was wondering if you were watching this. They actually don't get sent back that often. How often did they get sent back when you were working here? They do get returned sometimes by people saying it's the most vile thing they've ever had in their lives, or that they didn't like them for one reason or another. They generally don't ask for a second go around with ice, though. They're usually pretty done with them by the time they send them back. The section on the menu is called Evening Cocktails, and it reads pretty prominently room temperature below that. So the theory there was that we gave people enough info to understand that the drinks were being served at room temperature. If they didn't kind of glean it from that, then, well, we're happy to make them something else if that's what they wanted. But we generally just ask them what they would like instead if they're not happy with a room temp drink. I think at this point, I'm going to bid everybody a farewell out there in TV land. The new menu down here in Slowly Shirley will be dropping by the end of this month, beginning of next month. We're still trying to get an exact dates ironed out. Come down and check it out, and come and check out the room temp cocktails before they go off the menu until the fall. Thank you very much for checking this thing out today. Take care, guys. Bye.